Hello, my name is Marguerite, and today I'll be interviewing Mr. Steve Pero for the Remembering Our Veterans program. It's August 8th, 2023 at 12:30 p.m. So, first I wanted to ask a little bit about your childhood. So, where were you born and where did you grow up?
Well, my parents lived in Nashville, Illinois, and I was actually born in St. Louis, Missouri, on New Year's Day, January the 1st, 1942.
So, what's the story behind why you were born not in Nashville? Why were you born in St. Louis?
Well, the folks live about 50 miles east of St. Louis, and the obstetrician that they chose to guide my mother through delivery, actually in fertilization and delivery, was a specialist in St. Louis, Missouri. And at the time when the term of the pregnancy, my mother went into labor and needed to get to St. Louis for the delivery. And my dad was in the service at Scott Field, and as a dentist, he was running a clinic, and he asked his supervising Surgeon General if he could take the day off to take his wife, my mother,
Mhm.
to the hospital to have a baby. And he said, "Hell no, Pero, you can't stop World War II just to have a baby." So my mother still needed to get to the uh, obstetrician in St. Louis, and she had her brother take her to the hospital uh, uh, in order to deliver. So January the 1st, probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I understand, I was born.
So we've got, yeah, the photo there of your mom and you and your dad. You can see him in his military uniform. What was that like, kind of growing up with your father as a military man?
Well, he respected his time when he was in the service. He had several locations where he was stationed, and one of them happened to be in Great Falls, Montana. And he was sent to establish a dental office at that military installation in at Gore Field, Great Falls, Montana. And that dental clinic was established to care for the military of the Army Air Corps who helped service the planes that were being sent uh, um, from the mainland to Alaska and then on to Russia.
Hmm.
This was early World War II, but they needed a dentist, and I have the written history about the clinic that was started at Gore Field, which is now Malmstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls, Montana.
And here we have a picture of the base and a picture of your father. And so you said that he was there as a dentist, correct?
Yes, he was stationed there, a dentist, about 3 years, and then eventually he was transferred back to Scott Air Force Base in Belleville, Illinois, where he then fulfilled his obligation, and then uh, continued on in the reserves, in the military reserves. But then he went back to his private practice in Nashville, Illinois.
Did he ever get a chance to run back into the man who said that he couldn't be at your birth?
Oh yes, that's a family story, because my dad was not allowed to take his wife for the delivery of me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but then lo and behold, my father then became the head of the dental clinic at Scott Field, and in walks this retired dentist, and my dad being there at a also in charge, and it was quite a family story to repeat and to recognize.
And here we have a picture of your dad right there in charge. That's pretty great. at that base in Montana. So, what else did you do in your childhood? So, you grew up in Nashville for the whole time, or were you moving with your dad when he was stationed different places?
Well, I did go to Great Falls, Montana as a 3-year-old,
Okay,
as a 4-year-old, and a 5-year-old for about 3 years while he was fulfilling his obligation at Gore Field. Uh, but growing up, both of my grandparents' families lived in the Nashville, Radom, Illinois area within 15 miles of each other. And so I had access to uh, all four of my grandparents,
that's
all four of
incredible.
my grandparents, with my grandfather Piro having a stroke. But so he was the first uh, uh, grandparent that passed away. But he had celebrated working for the Postal Service in southern Illinois
Wow,
for at least 35 years.
that's
This
incredible.
and the horse and buggy when the roads were muddy, and and then finally the Model T car to deliver mail.
That must have been a big transition. That's pretty
Well, it depends
crazy.
on the weather. It depends on the weather. And my grandfather Malinowski worked for the Illinois Central Railroad,
Mm,
which was the route going from New Orleans to Chicago. And he was a tower man. A tower man. He controlled the switches, controlled a number of things with the locomotives that that moved bananas from New Orleans to Chicago, the fresh fruit. Illinois
interesting.
Central Railroad, which is still very viable.
So that must have been really interesting growing up with all that family history really close to you. Did that kind of affect your interests in like elementary and high school? Were you really interested in history and like,
Well, I continue to be interested in history because my mother grew up in Radom, Illinois, and actually took a train every day to school. They
wow.
live right near the railroad tracks in Radom, Illinois, Radom, and 6 miles up the road is high school.
Hmm.
So she grew up in that area. My mother in grade school learned to play the piano and the organ, and many times she worked within the St. Michael's Church Radom choir. And so I visited and helped out uh, turning music pages for my mother. And then in Nashville, Illinois, my dad's parents and family were very active in the church in Nashville, and I, during uh, grade school and in high school, served mass and helped out, even cutting grass for the church and the church
Wow.
cemetery in high school.
That's really incredible that you were doing all of that. So did that kind of create an interest in music for you as well?
Well, yes, I was in the high school band in Nashville, Illinois, and as a Boy Scout troop in Nashville, it developed into a drum and bugle corps, and one of the only, our first Boy Scout associated drum and bugle corps, and that was in Oakville, Illinois, because the Lions Club was very strong in that area, and they purchased the interest and the instruments. They
Mm-hmm.
purchased the
Wow.
instruments to make it possible for to 25 to 30 young people, uh, scouts,
Mm-hmm.
explorer scouts, and we the marching and the regimental movement of 30 people up and down the street during parades, playing music. Um, uh, you know, gave us the chance to perform in Chicago, uh, marching down one of the big streets uh, in Chicago. At this moment,
Wow.
I've lost memory of of that street, but I know I'll look at the picture and I'll let you know at
Yeah.
the end of this. Okay.
Yeah, here we have a picture from that street in 1958. It says Michigan Avenue on the back. There we
19,
go.
1958, and I graduated from high school in 1960.
So you were maybe a sophomore here, junior. Okay.
That was Michigan Avenue in Chicago, where we were marching, the Lions International Parade, and the Lions family of the Lions organization is still very, very vital and vibrant. And on the way from Nashville, Illinois, up to Chicago, we stopped at the Illinois governor's house.
Wow.
And played a series of our uh, uh, tunes as a scout drum and bugle corps for the governor of Illinois.
That's a big deal. Was that pretty memorable for you as a child?
Pretty big deal.
So, you said you graduated high school in 1960. So after that, did you know already kind of what you wanted to do, or did you have a plan in mind for after graduation?
And of course my father had his private practice in Nashville, Illinois, and I was always interested in biology, and I still remember my biology teacher in Nashville is Mr. Crago, Crago, and his favorite terminology was just just observe things, and that still holds true. But my father being a dentist, I hung around his office many times, much of the time, and so I applied to St. Louis University. Um, Not knowing for sure, but I did say to the priest that was sort of a guidance counselor that I wanted to go in to try dentistry, and he said you need this, and in 2 years you can get into dental school, and then if you do well in 4 years you can graduate from dental school. So we had a 6 year plan, and of course, I was a freshman in dental school, and the ROTC program that the school needed to participate in, they had a pep band, and being that I was a percussionist for the drum and bugle corps, I was in the pep band, and we could go to all the uh, St. Louis University basketball games and be the pep atmosphere, and I got in free. But I was also on the yearbook staff at St. Louis University.
Okay.
And so I got to be aware of the photography's exposure that we needed to organize a book, produce a book, and instead of continuing on with my third year of pre-dent, I got into dental school. So it was a choice: be an editor of the yearbook, or enter dental school. And I had to retake a chemistry course during the summer to get a B. And if I did so, of course, I went to summer school always. If I got a B in organic chemistry, I'd get into dental school. So I got into dental school after 2 years of pre-dent.
That's impressive.
And I finished in 4 years. But there were three of us in that class that got into dental school after 2 years. All three of us finished dental school on time, which is 4 years.
Yeah.
And then some were not as fortunate. It took them an extra year or 2 extra years because you could get in to dental school and medical school after a bachelor's degree. Okay. In dental school, which turned out to be 4 years, the first 2 years I rented a room at a nearby house where the lady fixed me breakfast, and then I had lunch and the evening meal on my own elsewhere. So it was right near the school. And the third year of dental school, I worked for the bus company
Mm-hmm.
in St. Louis. The bus company. Now, what was a student of dentistry doing with the bus company? Well, I worked in their lab at night. I answered emergency phone calls
Hmm.
of the staff of the bus company if they had medical questions, because they receive their medical care from a closed uh, uh,
Network.
their own network
Yeah.
of physicians, which had a clinic. But at night they could make a phone call. So I was actually interpreting 911 calls for the workers within the bus
Interesting.
company, and then making the referral that they go to the local hospital or not. And I would get a room with that had a bath attached, and $25 a month, and I'd get a bypass to use a bus pass, a bus pass to use anywhere in St. Louis the buses would go. So in dental school,
Wow.
I happened to have classmates, and one of the classmates' family owned a house where their son lived, but they would have frequent parties,
Mm-hmm.
and I just happened to be available. I was tired of studying on a Saturday. Um, and apparently this young lady that she said her blind date didn't show up, and she went to the fraternity party, and I happened to be there, and her beer glass was empty, and I filled it. And now we've been married for 50, it'll be 58 years.
That's incredible. So you guys, did you date throughout your dentistry?
We dated the final year, probably the second half of the third year and the senior year. But I utilized the bus pass. She was a resident and went to Fontbonne University
Okay.
in St. Louis, and I was at St. Louis University, and there was a very good bus transportation uh, in that area in St. Louis. And we continued dating and made plans to get married. And I proposed to her went out to dinner to Tony's restaurant in St. Louis, which is still an active restaurant.
Wow.
And I proposed to her there.
And of
And
course she said yes.
I think she may have called her parents first, but we had met the parents, and they lived in. My wife is from Toledo, Ohio,
Oh yeah.
and so I did fly from St. Louis to Detroit several times, many times. She graduated from Fontbonne uh, a year earlier than I graduated from dental school. So we dated somewhat, but fortunately enough to get to know each other,
Mm-hmm.
and traveled to, uh, flew into Detroit, and then met each other, uh, and then visited with her family in Toledo, Ohio.
That's great. And so you got married after you graduated dental school?
We got married the December uh, before I graduated.
Okay.
There were some occasions where we were living in an apartment in St. Louis
Mm-hmm.
as husband and wife,
Oh,
and even during my graduation, we were married.
that's so sweet. And so after you graduated, what did your lives together kind of look like? Did you start working or get into the military right away?
Well, that's a very good question, because with the influence I've had with my dad,
Mm-hmm.
and the wonderful exposure we've had with each other, husband and wife. We talked about the future from our parents.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's mother was a judge in Toledo, Ohio. her father was an architect, and my dad was a dentist in Illinois, and my mother was very active teaching. Uh, we had to come up with a plan, and the plan was I, my dad suggested the smart people are in the military, or they're in the military for a period of time.
Mhm.
So one of the wonderful experiences that I had, my wife had, and my dad had was I was commissioned a second lieutenant by my dad. He was still in the reserves, a very active reserve group in
Mhm.
St. Louis, and he administered the oath that which I then became a second lieutenant upon graduation from dental school,
Okay.
of which I did graduate in June, first of no the last day of May and the first part of June, and then at that time we look back at our wedding, and I can say now we got married December 28th, 1965. December 28th, 1965, in Toledo, with my graduation taking place, 4 or 5 months later. So we were married over the holidays because we didn't have much time off from dental school.
Yeah. So I just this is a photo of your father swearing you in. So this is when you became second lieutenant. That's just you were saying right away. That's pretty impressive
Well, that's the way it is.
because you were skilled.
Yes, and we had the Christmas holiday off. We got married on the 28th, and we went to Detroit for our honeymoon, and then over to Sarnia, Canada, for the rest of the honeymoon. So and then back to St. Louis because my wife had a job teaching the special ed children with no hearing.
Oh, that's really
Yeah,
interesting.
that's her specialty. And I continued on with dental school the last 6 months, finishing all my requirements, knowing that the 1st of July 1966, I let's see, is it 66?
Yeah, because you married in
65,
65. Yeah.
66. Uh, July 1st, 1966, I would be stationed at Fort Sam Houston in Texas
Okay.
for my basic training. And it turned out to be that the Korean War was really, really ramping up. And Fort Sam Houston was where the physicians and dentists go for their basic training.
Mm-hmm.
We had practice with the new MASH unit, MASH unit, where supplies and little portable tenting units were brought in, and you can remember the TV uh, a program with Klinger. Now Klinger is from Toledo, Ohio, but
Oh.
but the philosophy of a mobile medical unit was part of the MASH, and so we saw that happen. And then I had we were in Fort Sam Houston, and they were asking, "Where do you want to be stationed? Where do you want to be stationed when
Mm-hmm.
you finish with basic training?" And somehow I think my wife and I had, or Mary, uh, we talked it over, and we said we don't mind considering a third year. We had a 2 year commitment, but they sort of wanted to know where we wanted to go, and we decided to give Uncle Sam the third year if they would send us to Europe.
Oh. And
Send us to Europe, and they did. We were stationed in Germany.
in Berlin? Or
No,
no?
uh, we were stationed in Germany. Well, first of all, where are we going in Germany? and we had no idea about what Germany entailed. And so we just said Germany, and we did receive a orders to go to Baumholder, Germany. Baumholder, Germany, and it's a training area. When we were there were about 6,000 American troops at this training area.
Bigger than the town you grew up in.
Oh, way bigger, but in Europe. And we took a flight after basic training ended about 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. And then we waited another 2 weeks for all the orders to come through about when we leave. And so we had time in San Antonio to visit the Alamo again,
Oh, yeah.
to visit one of our favorite restaurants in San Antonio called the Barn Door. And you should go there sometime.
Next time I'm in San Antonio.
And then to visit Mexico for the bullfights. We drive down to Tijuana, and I must say that we were a little afraid to drink the water in our neighbor country of Mexico. So we bought a bottle of creme de menthe, and we drank creme de menthe watching the bullfight, and not water. So there were different physicians that we had met during that basic training, and then we all went our different directions, and we had orders to fly to Germany, and I know we flew overnight. I remember this. My Mary and I, and the seats were turned backwards. So instead of facing the direction that the plane was going, they were just 180 degrees. That's what I remember. And we had a fellow dentist and his wife were our sponsors in Germany. They met us at the airport. They knew we were coming. That was their responsibility, was to introduce us to Germany. And the first night, or first 3 nights, we stayed in Baumholder. We did not have housing assigned yet, and but we stayed in a building that we were told was Rommel's headquarters. Rommel was a German military person, and he was I had many things. He was the artillery, the big guns. He directed those, and we stayed in his uh, former building while we were assigned a condo, and where we stayed for over 3.5 years. We stayed, and we worked in the troop dental clinic.
Okay.
In Baumholder, Germany.
So while you were working at that dentist clinic, what was your wife doing in Germany?
Okay, well, for the first 2 years, she was just a homemaker, but our first daughter was born. Those first two, and we have 4 girls, but the first one was born in Germany and had a German birth certificate. There was a small hospital near where we gave birth. My wife gave birth, and one of the retired nurses in that hospital, Frau Spiegelberg. Frau Spiegelberg. We got to know her. She only worked for physicians and dentists, and only babysat for physicians and dentists in her home in Hauptstaden, which is where the hospital, a small hospital, Neubrücke Hospital. was positioned. So she was a wife and mother, uh, and for the first 2 years, and then she was a little antsy the third year, and we had good child care, so we traveled more. Uh, Being in the military, you get almost a month off a year,
Mm-hmm.
and I say that quite liberally, but between a time off for a religious retreat and your 30 days and meetings to go to. Like toward the end of our uh, 2 year, 3 year, uh, 2 year commitment with the year extension, I got to go to the International Convention of Pediatric Dentists.
Wow.
And that was in I'll think of it in just a minute, okay? But I worked with GIs. I worked with GIs who had issues as a general dentist. And then I put in my time. I was prompt, took care of the people, of my responsibilities. And then I was asked if I wanted to go to the dependent dental clinic.
Mm.
So from the troop clinic to the dependent clinic, where we saw mothers and children of the uh, wives of the 4 or 5 thousand Americans
Mm-hmm.
that rotated through, and so there I got to work with children, and some of the other dentists didn't want to work with children, and I sort of took it upon a niche to try, and
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it, and uh, so that's part of my dental treatment. We worked 5 days a week. We worked from 8 to 5, and I enjoyed my commitment, and uh, that's part of it. Um, we traveled throughout Europe, very very little in France, but we did all of the Luxembourg.
Mm.
We did we did we did France. We did uh, 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 oh all of Germany. We had a car. We Amsterdam. We'd go to Amsterdam on a weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I never went back to Illinois the 3 years
Wow.
I was in the service. I never went back to Toledo the 3 years. My wife went back, first of all, to show our newborn
Mm-hmm.
to the family and for her sister's wedding, Kay and Tony, their wedding. She flew back. We've had multiple family members come from Ohio to Germany to meet us and travel with us. Traveling, we drove up to Norway,
Wow.
and all throughout Norway to see the fjords.
So did you, I know you mentioned a little bit how you enjoyed history. So was that really cool to be able to see all over Europe and just places you'd only ever heard about?
Well, yes, we did see a lot of Europe. As I said, we didn't see much of France. The part of France that we did see was a brief weekend in Paris,
Mm-hmm.
and the American troops brought a a a, 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 a golf course,
Hmm.
the greens from the golf course that the American troops had in France. They brought these greens and transplanted them to Baumholder, Germany. Yes.
That's lucky. You got
Uh,
a golf course.
well, we did have, yes, right on base. So that was another thing that's happening. Uh, we got to go as a husband and wife to Berlin by
Mm-hmm.
train. We had to be in the officers had to be in uniform, and we went by train to Berlin, and we got to go to the east side of Berlin, and that was sort of spooky, but we did, we had permission to go. We couldn't take photographs, and we couldn't buy anything in East Berlin.
Yeah.
So we traveled quite a bit. We were able to go on religious retreats, and we went to Aspen. Um, we went to Birch's Garden. Now Aspen here in
Yeah,
Colorado.
I just assumed it was the German Aspen. You were
Yeah,
mentioning
yeah.
German.
Well, but you're thinking in the same way. But Birch's Garden is very special too. All of Switzerland we've seen.
I've heard it's beautiful there.
Yes. So we've again. I didn't go back to Illinois while because the my family is quite Polish, and they were just reminiscent of the war times in World War II, or the things that happened in World War II. My dad would not come to Poland. He
It's
would
too
not come to
hard.
Germany. He would not come to Germany.
Interesting.
So we have since gone to Poland, Mary and I.
Was that kind of emotional going back there?
Yes, yes, we've gone back to the home areas
Wow.
where my family grew up in Poland. We had good experiences, very good experiences uh, uh, in Germany as a uh, 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 as a army pediatric dentist. Now I say pediatric dentist because I was finishing my third year, and one of the senior officers said, Captain Pirro, you're due to rotate in August. I could use you to stay a little bit longer. I could use you to stay a little bit longer in the dental clinic because the new dentists are coming in from the States. They had just finished with Fort Sam Houston. So I said, okay, how long should I stay? I asked, and he said, well, stay till November. And so then I stayed I immediately ordered a Mercedes. We had borrowed the money from Mary, my wife's parents, and we had to pay for the Mercedes as we ordered it. It was $5,000 that we had to borrow.
A dream.
We gave the man the receipt, the $5,000. We had to transfer it to German marks, and that time it was 4 marks to a dollar. And so we had to go to American Express and change the money from our checking account to German Deutschmark and pay for it. And the salesman gave me a receipt. On his business card, he marked paid in full 20,000 marks. And well, when am I going to get the car? He says it's being made now. So it was we got a delivery date, 1st of November. So we said, well, we won't fly back till November, uh, but someone told us to, well, maybe see if you can go by boat.
Back.
By
Yeah.
boat back, because not many senior officers are going to want to go by boat because their kids are already in school in the States. So I applied, and we got our orders came. You get to go by boat. And so we had to, then someone took us up to Bremerhaven, which is northern Germany, and we got on a boat. It was the SS United States. The boat was in. No one wants to travel by boat in November, but we got on it. We had an inside compartment, which means we did not have a porthole to look out. We were on one of the lower levels, and we had a 2.5-year-old. And in November, it was it was it was chilly. The food was great. The scenery was wet on the outside.
Yeah.
The boat was
Whew.
ripply, and we got into New York City at daybreak, and of course our car had to be shipped 6 weeks ahead of time. So we only had the red Mercedes for about 3 weeks in Germany, and then we had to ship it. It went by a different boat. It went by a boat full of cars. So we get into New York Harbor, and we have to get off the boat. And so we had our suitcases, a 2.5-year-old, and my wife and I looking around we're back in the States. And it turns out that this trip of the boat, uh, Queen Mary, did I say?
You said USS United States.
USS United States. So, excuse me.
You're thinking of your wife, Queen Mary.
And she is. And so the SS United States, this was the last commercial trip of the SS United States.
That's crazy.
And so within 3 or 4 hours, we got off the boat. Where do we pick up our car? And they say, a bus will take you. And our car was there because it was shipped ahead of time.
And then did you drive back from there to Illinois to see family, or did you stay in New York for a while?
No, we drove. But my orders were to end up at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, because I was still in the military. I was just being transferred. And I chose St. Louis. I chose Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, because it was Army. It had a large base. It had a hospital, and the hospital had a pediatric dentist stationed there. So I said, I'm going to see more about working with children. Working with children. And there's a pediatric dentist, Dr. Steve Schusterman. Steve Schusterman was the pediatric dentist there. So I got to know a little bit about him. I get to work in his clinic at the hospital, and I also had time to interview at a couple of hospitals where I could do a residency in children's dentistry. And so being in St. Louis, and Fort Leonard Wood is not in St. Louis, excuse me. It's at least a couple hours from St. Louis. But my parents lived an hour east of St. Louis. So I got to see my parents. I got to visit with them. They get to see the 2.5-year-old, their grandchild, because they would not come to Germany.
Yeah, as you said.
And then go up to close to Mary's parents. So I worked out of Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I did my jobs, and I got to apply and accepted to 3 residency programs. So I had to make a choice. Where do I go? And because once I get accepted, then I can make a decision. How long do I stay in the service? So I was accepted to Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
Mary's from Ohio.
Yeah.
So we could do the residency in Columbus, Ohio, be available on weekends or every other weekend, because every other weekend I worked at the hospital, and then go visit the family. So I resigned my commission May the 15th, and June the 1st, I started my residency at Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio.
And this was 1970? Is that correct?
1970, yes.
Yeah, we have
1970.
just a couple of your pictures from your time in service. And yeah,
Yes.
you served 1966 to 1970.
Yes. So Fort Leonard Wood was a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
We bought a lot of our furniture, antique shows, things like that. And so I worked uh, at, at, at Children's Hospital, Columbus, Ohio, and then made plans to where should I practice? Because in 2 years I would be finished with a residency,
Mm-hmm.
and I started looking around, and one of Mary's uh, aunts aunts worked for a architectural firm who heard about a hospital being built in Toledo, Ohio, that was going to have some office space. So I planned to open my pediatric dental practice in Maumee, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Maumee, Ohio. And there was a building owned by a physician that I leased space in to develop day one of a pediatric dental office that flourished for 14 years.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah, 14 years. Let's say 14 years. Um, and we had a good. I started by working at the Toledo Health Department as a dentist, half time, and then I worked in my private office uh, the other half of time. Day one with one patient, and then the practice grew, and so did our family. So did our family grew. We have 4 daughters. Daughter one was born in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Daughter two was born in Toledo. Daughter three was born in Toledo, and daughter four was born in Toledo.
Stephanie, yeah.
It was
So
Stephanie because
that's
we
the one
named her Stephanie because she was number
There's-
4 and she was
the last
a
one.
daughter. Okay,
Yes.
and
I,
and she is very close to us. We had one of her daughters over last night. The second daughter we have, the oldest daughter, senior daughter, is also here in in Arvada, Colorado, and so our family uh, is good today.
And what about grandkids? Do you have any?
We have 6 grandchildren.
Oh, that's
We have
amazing.
6 grandchildren. Our Stephanie has 2. She has Hannah and she has Jake. Our second daughter has 2. Our Kathy and her wife uh, uh, Heidi. Kathy and Heidi have 2 children, Mackenzie and Grayson,
Mm-hmm.
and Christine has Scott. They live in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And Colleen, our senior daughter, has Trip and Finn.
Oh,
Trip is in college now in Seattle, Washington, a senior in Seattle University. Not Seattle.
Portland?
No, Seattle University. It's a Jesuit school.
Okay.
Okay, and Finn is at St. Louis University as a freshman. He just finished his freshman year at St. Louis University.
That's incredible. Third generation, right?
Third generation,
Yeah.
exactly. And he is to take his private pilot's license test this coming Thursday at St. Louis University.
So exciting.
He wants to go into aeronautics. So we have 6 grandchildren. We have a Marine. Heidi is a Marine, and we have Kathy has 2 children, and Stephanie has 2.
Any of them you think might go into dentistry someday?
They have decided not to.
No.
They have decided not to.
Well, some of the other ones are younger. There's still a chance.
Yes, yes, yes. My dental practice continued to flourish in Toledo, Ohio. I was finished with my residency.
Mm-hmm.
I had a mature practice, and about at age 4 years, the practice needed an associate. Mike Glinka joined my dental practice, and we were professional partners for about 25 years, maybe 30 years. So after 4 years and then another 30, so 34 years, Mike Glinka and I were partners,
Wow.
and we can the practice. Uh, has a young man who's an owner, is the owner now. His name is Tim Vos, and Tim's mother was a dental hygienist in our practice, and Tim, who is the owner of the dental practice now, was in utero as his mother worked for
Ah,
our office as a dental hygienist.
that's like a full circle moment there.
It really is. And he's doing a wonderful job keeping the dental practice going.
And so, did you move the dental practice from Toledo to Denver at some point, or
Uh,
was it
The dental practice remained in Maumee, Ohio.
okay?
Our love for the military was such within the family that my dad treasured his connection with the longtime uh, 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 connection to the military. He remained in Nashville, Illinois, retired from his dental practice, but still utilized Scott Air Force Base as his home ground, and he even went there for his medical care toward the
Mm-hmm.
end of his life, and he did die in Scott Field Air Force Base in 1990.
Okay.
So uh, my wife and I and family had good memories, wonderful experiences with the medical care
Mm-hmm.
as we are receiving now and as we have received in the past.
So, how did you guys get from Ohio to Denver? When did that happen?
We had been coming in and out of Denver as vacations.
Mm-hmm.
Our senior daughter was with Up With People, traveled with Up With People,
Mm-hmm.
and their headquarters was in the Denver area. My wife's sister and husband, Kay and Tony, they were in Denver as a work duty. Tony was a court administrator in Colorado, so
Mm-hmm.
we've spent a lot of time in Colorado, along with Kay and Tony's 5 children, our 4 girls. There were nine there were 9 siblings, that cousins that played together.
Mm-hmm.
Mary's family lived on the shore of Lake Erie and had a summer home on Lake Erie. So we settled in Toledo, Ohio, because it was natural for us to go where the water is.
Mm.
And so going from Columbus, where I had my residency, and remembering certainly Lake Erie uh, as a person who would date a lady, glad to be able to date a lady who lived on Lake Erie. We said that's going to be our home, but Colorado would be our second home. And as the girls migrated in their families, um, our oldest daughter uh, is now working at Regis University
Oh, okay. So in the city,
here
yeah.
here in Arvada, or in Denver. And so we thought, gee, it's let's come to Colorado and transition our home site uh, from Lake Erie to Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are at the Veterans Administration clinics. We're utilizing their excellent services and remembering all the good experiences that we've had throughout the last 40 years.
Yeah. We have this picture of you and your wife from 2017. It's a very sweet one. So, what do you do to keep busy in Denver? Do you have any hobbies or things that you do in your free time?
Yes, yes. I while in having dental practice in Maumee, Ohio, which is adjacent to Toledo, Ohio, and Toledo, Ohio is one of the glass capitals of the
Mm,
United States,
I
and,
didn't know
certainly of the United States, and likely so of the world. But as a hobby, I took up glass blowing at
that.
the
Wow.
at the Toledo Art Museum. Glass blowing as a hobby, and doing this for about 20 years as a hobby, selling some of the things,
Wow.
giving some of the things away. And actually, two of our daughters are qualified to blow glass. Uh,
Oh,
yes.
you have so many family legacy things. It's
Well,
just incredible that they're taking it up.
things just fit.
Yeah.
Uh, and another hobby I have is stamp collecting.
Mm.
And I started that when I was about 10 or 12 years old. And here in Denver, they have the second largest stamp library in the United States. Did
Wow.
you know that?
I did not know that.
Okay, it's here in in Denver, second largest stamp library in the United States. Philadelphia has the biggest.
You
So it's a hobby. It's a hobby, and traveling.
guys,
and
yeah,
and
after
I
all the
don't
year.
and I don't leave the house without a camera. And one of the big benefits of being in the military, and also associated with that, is our experience living with the military in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Were able to buy cameras and stereo equipment through the military PX and BX system. So that's where we bought our first
Oh,
amplifiers for sound. We bought many clocks through the antique stores,
mm,
and cameras, that we still continue the hobby of photography.
that's incredible that you guys have a lot of hobbies you can do together and your family and with your wife.
Yes,
I know you've got a huge family now. Is this everybody? Yeah, all the grandkids that we talked about and all your kids. So
yes,
sweet.
yeah. This is Hannah,
There might be some missing because it's from 2015, but
Jake, Mackenzie, Trip. Um,
oh,
Finn is Finn is right here. He's the one who's taking his pilot's license
yeah.
exam.
Oh, that's so
But they're all
sweet.
there. That's on our 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh, and soon you're going to be at 60. It's coming up pretty soon.
Yes,
2025.
time flies.
Time flies when you're in love.
Yes, yes.
You said you don't have any kids in Golden, though, right? They're all out and about.
We have one lives in
One
Golden,
lives in Golden. And
has a husband, has two children.
mm-hmm.
Their daughter, who is 13, was born with a cleft lip and cleft
Oh,
palate,
okay.
major cleft lip
Mm-hmm.
and palate. What my wife trained for is deaf education. This granddaughter has no hearing, but she can hear you and I now.
Yeah.
She got an implant.
The cochlear.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So she worked with special ed, and that's what she studied. And she almost flunked out of Notre Dame
That's a
University,
hard school.
because she didn't study. And her mother said, my wife's mother, my mother-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
said, "No, you're not staying home. You're going to do something that's worthwhile." And their neighbor children in Toledo had two boys that were born deaf, and the family moved to St. Louis, so their two boys, the neighbors'
Mm-hmm.
two boys, could go to a real good school for the deaf. So my wife, not doing well, or not knowing what to do, said maybe I should go to St. Louis and study where the boys came to St. Louis to go to an all-girls school
Mm-hmm.
to study deaf ed. This is a very good experience. Any more questions?
Just a couple like reflection questions. So, how would you say that your military service has affected your life? How were those experiences kind of shaped the man you are
Well,
today?
you have to be organized. You have to be organized when you're traveling. You have to be organized when you're doing your profession. You have to be organized having families.
Mm-hmm.
Just how you pack your suitcases.
And if you could leave one message for future generations, including your grandkids, of course, what would that be? Like a lesson they might.
Hmm. Be considerate with the life that we have been given. Be protective of the life that we've been given. And keep yourself healthy to maintain a long, productive life. Try it and you'll like it.
Oh, I just remembered we forgot to talk about your cancer journey. Is that something you want to talk about briefly? It's
Oh
up to you.
yes.
Yes.
I'm here today because I was diagnosed with esophageal cancer 18 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and 17 years ago, um, or after it took about almost 9 months to go through the uh, diagnosis stage, preliminary stage, and
Wow.
treatment stage to have. I don't have an esophagus, so
Mm.
the esophagus had to be removed from the top of my stomach to the top of my esophagus,
Wow.
to the back of my throat. So I'm a 17-year survivor of esophageal cancer.
It's
I had
incredible.
radiation and chemo, and I went for a second opinion. And I would encourage uh, second opinions, even third opinions, uh, with decisions in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always get a couple opinions about things. I did the same thing as I think
Hmm.
I'm also a cancer survivor, but only a little over like a year.
Yep,
And
yep,
I got multiple opinions because you just want to make
yes.
sure.
You get one opinion, yes, that could be. Two opinions, it could be, but you always, which one? And the third opinion will lean you in one direction or another.
Exactly.
And it could go to four or five, but do take care of yourself. We have such a life to live.
We
And
do.
be thankful.
Well, I'm thankful for you coming in today and sharing all about your life. It's been a great interview.
And we're thankful for the military people who remain active in the services taking care of us.
Shout out to Liz behind the camera. So, is there anything else you want to add before we end the interview that you didn't get to talk about?
Keep smiling. Yes.
Well, thank you again, for
Thank you.
all the work you've done
Thank
and for
you.
coming in today.